Hello and welcome back to Channel England Football. My name's Gary and today I'm going to be discussing England's attacking front three. Now this is going to be a video based on who I think, if the World Cup was starting tomorrow, who Southgate should start in basically his system he plays, isn't it? Those front three, so a striker and then two off from him on the wing. Now when I first planned to make this video, I thought it would be quite a simple video. When I was doing my research though, I figured out that that isn't quite the case. So we'll see. Obviously there's a lot of players at the minute either not on form and then a lot of new players that are on form. As we know, England are full of riches and full of debt. I'm going to take a good look at this one. I want you guys to give me your opinions because obviously everyone's going to have different opinions on this. We've got so many different players that we could play in these positions. But without further delay, let's get into it. So what inspired me to make this video was the fact that essentially our best striker, and you know, the only world-class striker at the minute, I would say we've got Harry Kane. Clearly, you know, he has started to pick up form again, but he's not all firing, is it? And I did a video quite recently saying that if he doesn't start to pick up his performances, it's going to give Southgate a lot of problems or a lot of things to think about. So I wanted to look then at how we stand currently. So like I said, if the World Cup was starting tomorrow, who would start in that front three for England? And I know for a fact, and we all know for a fact, Southgate would pick Kane, he would pick, and rightly so, you know, he's never let him down before in the past, and Sterling and probably Saka. That is who I think Southgate will pick if the World Cup was tomorrow. However, this is me giving my opinion, and actually who the form players are at the moment, who actually, if it carries on in this vein, remember there's almost the full year now, well there is the full year until the World Cup. If players carry on playing in the form that they are, then who knows who the front three would be. But at the minute, if they're playing as they are, this is who I think they would be. So firstly, we just need to quickly, just before I give that actually, I'm just going to have a look really at who are England or English top goal scorers within the Premier League this season. So top of the list, we've got Jamie Vardy, which is a bit of a disappointment because obviously, as we all know, he's not making himself available for picks. He's retired. So Jamie Vardy is actually the top England goal scorer with 9 goals in the Premier League this season, and we can't pick him. However, the next on the list, so I'll go through the list really. So Jamie Vardy's top with 9 goals. Then you've got the second highest English goal scorer this season, currently Smith-rowe. What a season he's having. I'll come on to it in a minute. Then you've got Smith-rowe's on 8, by the way. Then you've got Mount, Gallagher, Sterling, all on 7. So they're joint third highest. So again, Mount, Gallagher, again, a new player who's come up, fantastic season. And Sterling, surprisingly, he's got 7 actually, being the third highest English goal scorer, because at the beginning of the season he couldn't get a game, but he's there. And then making up the fourth highest scorers, if you like, are Jared Bowen on 6, Saka, Maddison, Ward-Prowse and Callum Wilson all have 6 goals. And then bringing up the bottom, you've got Greenwood and you've got Ivan Toney as well. So them two are both on 5 goals. Now the problem England's got, or Southgate's got, as we move forward, as you can see, you know, Kane isn't on that list, like I've said before. Harry Kane is not scoring goals. It's as simple as that. Now out of that list I've just said, there's 12 players on that list. One of them, the top goal scorer, like I've said, isn't eligible for selection. But out of those 11 then, should we say, only 4 of those are centre forwards, if you like. So that's Toney, Greenwood, Wilson and Jared Bowen. So obviously they're going to be the ones that are going to be replacing a Kane if Kane were to be replaced. Obviously, though, not included on that list are players who, through injury or just haven't been scoring as well, are also out-and-out centre forwards, if you like. So we've got Calvert-Lewin, Tammy Abraham, I'll come on to him. He scored 7 goals, actually. So he would be one of these favourites to take over from Kane based on current form. Ollie Watkins, obviously, Patrick Bamford and Danny Ings. So there's some players that aren't on the list of goal scorers but would be in with a shout had they had been fit and probably scoring a little bit more regular. But looking at that then, outside of the ineligible players, the most eligible centre forward who's scored the most goals, who's English, is Jared Bowen. What a season he is having. To be honest with you, let's be honest, if he carried on in this form and Kane carried on his form, is there an argument there that Bowen would start above Kane in 9, 10, 11 months' time? Sorry, 12 months' time. It's December, isn't it? So there would be a shout, in my opinion, that if these forms, you know, continued as they are, Bowen would be the centre forward. There's no doubt, along with Tammy Abraham, who's got 7 goals. They're the 2 strikers at the minute who are scoring the most goals. And I know people are going to say we need to look at other things other than goals, but I think a centre-forward is there to score goals. It's the reason why Kane keeps getting picked, even though he might not be in the game for 80, 90 minutes. It's because he will score if he gets the opportunity. So for me, just based on goals alone, that is enough for a striker to get in for me. Particularly if you're playing a lone striker, I think if you give them that chance, they need to be able to take it. And based on current form, like I said, the player to replace Kane, in my opinion, would be Jarrod Bowen. He's having a great season. The other people obviously up there, Callum Wilson is having a great season. Greenwood's one that just consistently just never seems to come up. Really, someone's always ahead of him. He's still young, he's still thirsty, but there's obviously been that thing in the past with what appears to be bad choices and bad attitudes that's probably affected his selection. And Tony's one, obviously, but I think let's be honest, managers do tend to pick players playing from better teams, should we say, and I think that may restrict him getting a place above some of these other players. So yeah, based on current form, you'd struggle to justify Kane's selection, wouldn't you? And I'm not saying this is anything bad against Kane. I hope to God, I think a fully fit, firing Kane is by far our best striker, and I hope he does, kick on, if you like, and get back into form. But a lot of these players are coming through now, very exciting, and you've got to look at them if form carries on as it is. That leaves us then with the struggles of who's going to play either side. So, in my opinion, Jarrod Bowen would start that, and then who would be the 2 either side of him? We all know, like I said, if a game was on tomorrow, I think the starting front 3 would probably be Sterling, Kane, and probably Saka. He favoured Saka, I think, a little bit more during the Euros. Tomorrow, based on current form, who would be those 2 wide players? So I think this is where assists, we need to look a little bit further into this. Looking at assists, you've got, these are the wide players, these are the wide players who I think could play in those positions. You've got Saka. I've put Trent Alexander-Arnold in there, I'll come on to that in a second. Grealish, Foden, Sterling, Rashford, Sancho, Demarai Gray, Lingard, and Smith-rowe. Now, some of those are surprising. Smith-rowe, I think, I've seen him play left of a striker at Arsenal, and he's scoring goals, so I believe he could play in that role. Out of those players, there's some players on really good form, isn't there? Probably some that I could still argue still could be picked. So Sterling and Saka, particularly Sterling, just recently, he started to have a really good season again. Saka, I think, has had a fantastic season. But you can't ignore players like TAA. I know he's a fullback or wing-back or whatever you want to call it, but he has played more advanced up that wing for Liverpool. Obviously, some people's criticism of TAA is that he isn't the best defender, so he is eligible to push up further forward. And actually, in the Premier League, he's actually by far the best, the highest assists this season with 10 assists. He tops the assist board, so clearly he offers something going forward, or a lot going forward. The other players, I think Foden and Grealish actually probably struggle to get in. Now, why I'm saying that is because they're in a team that's looking like going to run away with the league, but they're not exactly scoring and assisting, many goals. They're not involved in much. They're not playing bad football. In my opinion, if they're struggling in a team such as City, are they the right players to be looking at if they're going to be our key players? I'm not so sure at the minute. I think both of them, although they haven't had bad seasons, for me, I would like to have seen a little bit more from both. Rashford's a funny one. He didn't start again today, but he's come off the bench and got the winner. He started scoring actually over the past couple of games. His attitude, though, is clearly not right. He's clearly an unhappy man. And I think there's a long way to go with Rashford. It's a key season for him, but I don't think mentally he's in the right place. Sancho, the same. He just doesn't seem to be affecting games, doesn't seem to be getting enough game time. I don't know if he's injured at the minute anyway. Lingard doesn't play neither. Smith-rowe's an interesting one. Now, like I said, he's the second English goal scorer. He's actually the highest eligible English goal scorer in the Premier League this season, even above Tammy Abraham if you count, the continent. So Smith-rowe is clearly in with a shout. Now, I've seen a little bit of contradiction about where his preferred position is. Obviously, he's still very new. He's just up and coming this season. Some people are saying he's a centre-forward. Some people are saying he's more, just off the centre-forward on that left. That's why I've included him on wide players. And again, if he's carrying this current form, you'd have to put him up there, wouldn't you, with a shout? But currently, I think, based on current form, because Saka and Sterling are playing such good football, I think Southgate would stick with them because he'd stick with them anyway. But I think he'd stick with them because they are still on form. So you wouldn't really argue with him really if he picked them if the World Cup was tomorrow. So yeah, it's an interesting one. There's a huge amount of riches there for England. I think in a centre forward position, I think if Kane carries on not producing and showing this kind of form, that position is wide open. But it's wide open for actually a large amount of players. There's a lot of players who could be claiming a place in that centre forward spot. But there's not actually one other than Jared Bowen really at the minute, and probably Callum Wilson. There's not really anyone who's jumping out as being able to claim that spot. But England in the wide positions, as we know, are clearly blessed. Some of those players who were labelled as the top goal scorers actually didn't come into the discussion of centre forward or wide players. You know, like Gallagher, for example, Maddison, Ward-Prowse. These are all obviously central midfielders. Mount, for example. In the World Cup or in the Euros, sorry, he only played one of those. So he played the two holding midfielders and one more free roaming. It would tended to be Mount during the Euros. Who would that be out of those going into the World Cup? At the minute, you would probably go with Mount still. He's scoring the goals, he's playing good football, but certainly you can't ignore at the minute Gallagher. You know, Ward-Prowse again, he's just fantastic, and from set pieces is absolutely deadly. England's choice in the wide areas and central attacking midfield are vast. I think up front, actually, all of a sudden we've started to look a bit dry, a little bit short. I hope Jared Bowen carries on the form he does, and Kane, you know, if Kane starts finding form, then all of a sudden everything starts turning around and we look like we've got a good bunch of players to choose from again. But from an English perspective, centre forwards this season haven't had the best season, Bowen being the exception. Thank you very much for this. So yeah, like I said, I think if we were playing a game tomorrow in the World Cup, on form, you would probably go with Jared Bowen, Saka and Sterling, but certainly you might push for Trent Alexander-Arnold, or yeah, maybe Trent Alexander-Arnold to come into that, or Smith-Rowe certainly on the left. But that would be my three. Southgate, as we know, would pick the usual front three of Kane, Sterling and Saka if they're available. But it's going to be very interesting coming into the World Cup in December. Let me know who you would play, who's your chosen front three, because everyone's going to have a different opinion on this. Let me know your three below in the comments. Thank you very much for watching, and I hope to see you on the next video.